All right, good morning, guys. Today I'm going to go over this is 1.6 ethics and science, and ethics is kind of like what's the proper thing to do? What's the honest way of doing this? And sometimes um, it's a difficult decision if that makes any sense. So here's an example that they gave you right off the bat. They talked about how they found this anti-cancer drug, and it actually was a chemical that they found was within the bark of these type of trees called Pacific yews. And so what they had to do is they had to strip the bark off so that chemists could extract the drug for cancer patients. Now the problem was when they were doing this to the trees, it harmed the trees. Okay, so it was harming the trees, and then the concern was, would it drive these trees to be endangered or even possibly risk extinction? Right. So that's a dilemma. That's a dilemma. So you have to weigh, like pros versus the cons, and hopefully make the best possible decision. Fortunately, what they did with this one, they were actually able to create. They isolated the chemical structure for this cancer drug right here. They isolated it, and then they were able to synthesize it. Chemists were able to make a synthetic, not a, synthetic, whatever, chemical, synthesize the exact same chemical, sorry, that would actually save lives. So that worked out really, really well. Sometimes, just so I point this out, is ethical, it's a dilemma. Sometimes there isn't really a right or a wrong answer. It's just what is the best answer at that time, if that makes sense. Okay, scroll down here. Then we talk about ethical rules in science. The research has to be honest. Okay, so you can't mislead or fudge the data. We know that's happened in the past and it's caused lots of problems. If you're interested in looking one up, look into where this was disproven, but there was out there for a little bit, and it's untrue. I just want to make sure that I'm clear with that. But they're trying to show that vaccines were causing a rise in children with autism, and they're trying to say it was a preservative within there, and that is not true. There was some trials initially that were studying that, and initially the data was fudged, and so they were trying to say, oh, see, there's a connection, more preservative, higher risk of autism or higher incidence, and actually that was disproved by scientists all over the globe, and so that is not true. Vaccines, as of what we know, vaccines do not cause autism. However, that misinformation is still out there, and so there's people that are still holding on to it, and that's a very dangerous thing, I think. Just because vaccines have saved so many lives, you never hear of kids with polio anymore, which is just a devastating, horrific childhood disease that followed them the rest of their lives. So, yeah, there's it's interesting. Okay, the research, the researchers have to kind of go in. They must be unbiased, meaning very open-minded. They can't have a certain skewed point of view. They have to try to go in being as unbiased as possible. That way, they're going to get the results, not the results that they wanted or they hoped for, but just the results. Research has to be done careful to avoid errors. And they have to, when they're doing this, they have to make sure that the subjects that are being given, maybe the medication, are told prior to the trials of the possible risks. So they're not going blindly into this. They need to know this is a trial. We're giving you this medication, and here are the possible risks. This is what's going on right now, even with the coronavirus. We're now heading into phase 3 trials, which is just larger trials. So a couple of these vaccines have gone through phase 1, phase 2, and it's looking very promising, which is outstanding. And now they're going to phase 3, which is larger groups of subjects. But all those people are warned and told of the possible risks of being in this trial. And that has to be that way. Also, when they're doing trials, every human needs to be treated humanely, as well as animals. So a lot of times research can be done on animals, but that has to be done in a very humane way. This is kind of a dark bit of history here, but there was research that was being done. This is back from the 1930s all the way into the 70s. And medical researchers were studying the progression of this really serious disease. And they were, the subjects, the people that were in these trials were poor men in Alabama. And these poor men, some had the disease and some did not have the disease. But they told these men that they were going to be simply receiving free medical care. And they never told the men that either they had the disease or they didn't. So some men had it, some didn't, but they were never informed if they had it. And the issue was they were never treated for the disease. So even when a cure was discovered in the 1940s, these subjects, these poor men who were suffering from this serious disease, they were never given the treatment, the cure. Instead, the study continued for the next 25 years until finally someone that was close to it actually became a whistleblower. They actually brought it to light and to the public, and kind of a really that it's kind of when they talk about ethics in science, this trial always comes up, and it's called the Tuskegee experiment. So if you want to know more about it, Tuskegee experiment. All right, I'm gonna scroll down here. So here's the summary. You can highlight that. It's pretty much just what I said. All right, hope you're doing well. Thank you.